All right. Well, good afternoon and welcome everyone to Inspiration 2021. Before we get started, a very quick announcement. If you have not yet checked your inbox this morning, Dawn Mountain is happy to announce that we have launched our e-learning platform. And this is a handful of some of our most popular courses. One of the people who helped us review before launch described them as quintessential Ann and Harvey and Dawn Mountain teachings. So please take a look. They are accessible for newcomers as well as veteran practitioners. So take a look and please feel free to share. And speaking of Ann and Harvey, it's my honor and privilege to introduce our founders and our lamas who are going to take us down an exploration of setting positive intention for 2021. So thank you. And once again, thank you for coming.
Thank you, Bob, and everyone.
Thank you, Bob, and welcome everyone. It's lovely to know that you're with us, and we really appreciate your joining with us to light the lights of our heart and minds for this season in every sense. Light, light. Everywhere in the world, in dark seasons of the year, winter, also dark seasons when they're dark in other senses, people light lamps, they light candles. In Tibet, they light butter lamps. Everywhere, human beings recognize that light in every form illuminates the darkness, illuminates our lives. And so we're here today to share our light with each other. I was thinking, the phrase came to me a little bit before we began. Dickens' famous phrase, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. And in some ways we may often feel the worst of times, anyway, challenging times. And at the same time, the dark gives the light an expanse to show its power in. And we always need that. We always need light. And when I think of light, I think of the light of the mind. The light of the mind is our knowing, our awareness. It literally is mind light. What else allows us to see, to know, to be aware, even in the dullest of states, which we experience time and again, often to our embarrassment, because maybe we feel like we're cultivating clarity. But there is also clarity, as we often point out, in knowing it feels dull. So whenever we know or feel anything at all, we say, from our perspective, this is the light of your mind. It shines on everything. Everything that we see and know is lit by the light of our mind, and everything that occurs in the mind-lit field of our experience. That's just true. And knowing that is perhaps a pathway into a sense of wholeness. One of the things about dark times, about hard times, is that they shred our sense of who we are, of fullness, of completeness. We feel separated, and we are separated from things that we love to do, people that we love to share with, our own ease and comfort. This is the darkness of our experience. And just bringing that into awareness is already a kind of light. A kind of light. And there is always, always need for it. And that's something rather precious to recognize, maybe especially in dark times, which seem like the exception. Maybe there are, of course, exceptionally dark times. It's exceptional challenges that we come across in our personal lives or as a community. But this too has always been with us. Some of you may remember a story that Matthew Ricard calls to mind in his wonderful book on happiness, the most important human art, the art of happiness. He tells of a king of Persia in days of old. And the king had a very good friend from childhood who was wise. And he said, please, now that I'm king and I have to rule, I'd like to know what the history of human beings is, because I need to take that into account in order to be a good ruler. Very well, I will do it, my sire, he said. And he goes off with, consults all the great sages and historians and scholars and wisdom beings of the kingdom. And he comes back with 36 volumes. And the king says, I can't read that. I'm busy. Please, can't you condense it? All right. And it takes another couple of years, and he condenses it down now to 10 volumes. That's a big reduction, and those of us who edit our own work will recognize, but still, it's 10 volumes. Please, please, please go back to work. I need the essence. I need to know the essence of human history. 2 more years. He distills it down to its very essence. The king is old and gray and white and on his deathbed. With his last breath, he says, tell me, what is the essence, the history of our human family? They suffer. I feel that at least it moves me, that story, because it is kind of an unbridled recognition of, hey, yeah, this happens. It happens. And something about that paradoxically is relaxing, at least to my system. It suggests that, inevitability is in some ways relaxing. Yes, there are always things we can do and must do to make things better, but there's a certain existential inevitability that you may have heard of if you've been hanging around Buddhist logos for a while, which somehow removes the blame. Like, oh, if only I had done. Well, if only you had done, yes, something might have been different. But ultimately, as human beings, this is something we have to deal with. So really a wonderful thing to learn how to turn on our light. The light of the mind, the light of the heart. We'll come back to this in a bit. The light of the heart, the feelings of love that we have for each other, all the more heightened, illuminated, when we recognize that we are all of us fragile. We are all of us mortal. And the preciousness that comes in that does, it seems to me, light up the heart. The joy and appreciation that we have for our lives and for one another. All of this is really significant. The dark events that have been upon us due to COVID-19, due to all kinds of civic uncertainty and unrest, is really troubling. It's not fun. It's troubling. And yet, we've seen some very dark things, and we have also seen, the greatness of some human beings, the doctors who are knowingly risking their lives, and nurses, and all of the health professions knowingly risking their lives, helping. Who are they helping? They're helping us. They're helping our families. They're helping our fellow citizens, our fellow world citizens. It's very heart illuminating to recognize the courage and goodness of people we don't know, but who are intimately involved in the very things that keep us up at night. We've seen the ingenuity of people. Shang Yongchen was one of the 100 influencers, many of whom I had never heard of in a recent issue of Time. Well, he mapped the genome of COVID That's pretty important. We all owe him a lot of thanks. So there is a coming forth of humanity also, and our appreciation of that lights our hearts. It's another kind of candle. There are many kinds of candles. You are perhaps reflecting with your own fertile imaginations and memories of the kinds of candles that are meaningful to you. A laugh with a good friend, telling a child a story, reading or telling, singing. There's lots of ways to light our lives, and it's really important that we consider how we do that. And so in this way, we move back and forth between the darkness, which is what we are illuminating, and which actually goes away in the face of light. As we say, a cave that's been dark for thousands of years, bring in a candle and it's filled with light. And knowing that that light is banishing 2,000 or maybe more years of darkness is also something moving to the light of the, I don't know, the appreciative cells in the heart. So there's some kind of movement. We light a candle knowing that there's a reason we need to light it. There's something that we wish to be fortified in the face of, which means that we are also recognizing that very thing in the face of which we are fortifying ourselves. Silence is also illuminating. There's also a kind of light sometimes. Illuminating is knowing. Knowing, as I keep saying, is a type of illumination. Connection, heart to heart, is another type of illumination. You may remember the story of Kisa Gotami, a young woman in the time of the Buddha. It's a famous story. Always new, perhaps, in the hearing. Because light is like that. Light is always fresh. Every time you turn the light on, there it is. It's not like, oh, there's that old light again. Oh, that sun, you know. There's something always new about light. I think that's one of the things that is so vivifying. Harvey often talks about freshness. Light is always fresh. It's always bright. It's never stale. There's nothing like old light. It's always refreshing itself. So does the light of the mind. So does the light of awareness. The light of knowing is also, every moment is a new moment, whether we recognize it or not as such. So Kisa Gotami, she's a young woman. She actually comes from a very well-to-do family. Her life has been pretty much total good fortune. She marries well. She has a child. And then the worst thing, some of my teachers have said, the worst thing that can befall a mother or father is the child died. And she carries the dead child to the Buddha and says, please, please, can't you revive him? You're the Buddha, you're the awakened one, you're illuminated, give me back my child. It's unbearable. And the Buddha doesn't say things that we might expect. He doesn't say, I'm so sorry. He doesn't say, the child is at peace now. He doesn't say, it will be all right. He doesn't say, you will get over your grief eventually. He doesn't say any of those things. He listens. He hears her story. And then he makes a gentle suggestion. He says, I will help you. But first, I ask you to go to your neighbors and ask for some salt. Only salt will you accept that comes from a household that has not known death. A household that has not known death. All right, then. Of course, she's ready to canvass the whole town. All she has to do is bring some salt back to the Buddha. And her child will be saved. her life will be whole again? Excuse me, when the door answers, please give me some salt. But first, has anyone died in your household? Ah, yes, last month we lost my grandmother. Oh, thank you, I must go somewhere else. She goes to the next house. Please, I need some salt to bring to the Buddha. But first, has anyone died in your household? Oh, yes, my nephew, some months ago. And on it goes. She never finds a household that has not known death. She returns to the Buddha and tells him what she has discovered. And again, he listens. He hears her. He says, yes, and so it is. In this life, ordinary life in which things turn from good to bad and good to bad, this ordinary life which has no stability, this is how it is. This is truth. You have discovered something true. And it seems, if we infer from what we know about her, this truth certainly didn't banish her grief, but it did bring her comfort. And she decided then to focus on the teaching and practice as a way to keep truth always lit in her heart. And that itself becomes a great ballast for us, allows us to laugh right in the face of death, right in the face of danger, because suffering is not all we are. And she was able to light a certain kind of candle of truth, which gave rise to ease, even ultimately to stages of joy, ample willingness to continue her life. She was inspired.
In discussing this benefit, we and Bob were talking about what can we bring forward that both acknowledges what has occurred within the last year, 2020, and sources of strength, ability to give ourselves inner stability in terms of moving forward into 2021. And so the things that Anne just shared are part of what inspires us. I think a lot of what allows us to sustain and maintain and move forward is our community and our friends, our teachers, our practices. In specific, Anne alluded to this and kind of coming at it in one angle. I'm going to talk about what she just sort of talked about in a slightly different angle. The phrase that came to me was the grace of acknowledgement. There is indeed a settling that comes when we acknowledge things. I'm reminded of the first step of Alcoholics Anonymous or AA and also Al-Anon, when a person comes to accept and acknowledge that they're powerless over either their alcoholism or their spouse or their significant other who is dealing with alcoholism. It's just acknowledgement of reality. Often people come in to work with me for couples therapy, and we do talk about a 7-year itch. Sometimes it's 7 days, 7 months. It can be 7 years. People get married and they have a kind of futures contract in the relationship, and they're expecting their spouse to become their imagined spouse. And after 7 years, it kind of becomes clear it ain't happening. There's a real point in a relationship where you need to acknowledge who you're with, also acknowledge who you are. Can be a lot of resolution and peace when people stop trying to change one another. Acknowledgement has graciousness associated with it. You know, we are in a culture that is oriented towards doing. We're in a culture that's oriented towards problem solving. And most of the folks that I know are really terrific at doing and problem solving. But we often skip over the step of actually feeling our experience. And this, interestingly enough, is both pain and pleasure. Pain and pleasure. When I talk with people and they're describing something that's been pleasurable and ask them to slow down and sort of just feel into what was pleasurable, it feels like I'm stopping a choo-choo train. I mean, people just want to keep telling the story. And certainly if I am talking with somebody who's experiencing some difficulty and I ask them to slow down and, you know, what are you feeling as you're describing this story? There's also a kind of a choo-choo train that just wants to keep telling the story, as opposed to acknowledging what experience is, experiential acknowledgement. Part of what's happened in my own experience during COVID is that, you know, there's a lot more time to spend with myself. And so there's been more time to sit with some of my experience. And with that comes some congruence, some settlement, some appreciation of my shared humanity. It's what Gautama was doing with Kisa Gautami, was alerting her to her shared humanity. You know, when we think about practice, we think about difficulties, we think about transformation. Transformation is one of our key values at Dawn Mountain. Acknowledgement can be the first step in a process of developing self-compassion, also compassion for others, a process of transformation. Kristen Neff, who's one of our reigning experts in the US nowadays on self-compassion, the other is Chris Germer. They've got a couple of wonderful websites if you're interested in that. In terms of developing self-compassion, the first step is acknowledging our experience. So many of us do so much to avoid experience. Some of us will go to extremes of using drugs. TV is often a drug of choice. Work can be a drug of choice. We just don't let ourselves be with ourselves. So allowing ourselves to know our experience is a first step towards self-compassion, acknowledging there's grace in that. But with that, there's also comes an understanding of our shared humanity. Oh, somebody I loved died yesterday. And so many people in our country and the world now are experiencing that, just like Kisa Gautami realized. But when we feel it in ourselves as an actual experience, it starts taking on a dynamism in our soul. And then an ability to have self-kindness, however it is that we come to some kind of kindness towards ourselves, to relieve some of the ache and pain. But first we've felt it, and we've also recognized that others feel this. And then we do things that perhaps alleviate that pain. We have kindness for ourselves. Self-compassion is also developed and deepened by the traditional meditation practices that we do as a community together. Very, very important. We practice together as a community, and we draw on a tradition of wisdom. Very, very helpful for us to have the resources that we do that lead us inside. So there is a brokenness to pain, an unwholeness, which we do acknowledge experientially. And then there is a repair that can occur. And that repair can occur in understanding our shared humanity, in kindness to ourselves, and also with meditation, which touches into a deeper part of ourselves, our deepest nature. And when we meditate, we start sensing something that is so deep and so spacious that it's like the water of the ocean that can create some flotation for what otherwise can feel very, very heavy and very, very overwhelming when it's contextualized in something larger and vaster and quieter. There's some more buoyancy through the meditations that we practice as a community. And Emily, can you bring up that slide? Ah, yes, beautiful. Thank you so much. So there's a wonderful metaphor in the world of Japanese tea ceremony. When a cup breaks, they weld it back together, often with gold, as you see here. And the sense is that there's both fragility in the breaking of the cup, but then there's the resilience of bringing the cup back together into wholeness through the welding with the gold. And I'm just touched thinking about this. The repair of that fragile cup through the resilience of the welding makes it more beautiful than it was originally. It's a very, very rich metaphor. Okay, thank you, Emily. Really appreciate you having done that. Rumi has a line that is along the same lines, and that is that the wound is what lets in the light. What I'm talking about here is not theory, it's not science, it's not algebra, but these are truths that come alive in the battle trenches of our lives. Through awareness of our own difficulties, we come to a kindness and a sensitivity to ourselves and an appreciation of how this is shared with others. And compassion for ourselves then easily flows into compassion for others.
So the dynamism of the soul that Harvey referred to is something that opens, particularly when we give it some space. It does require a little bit of space, a little bit of time. It doesn't really require effort because the dynamism of the soul is, I think, always available to us. And there's a grace to it. There's a wholeness to that. There's a holiness to it. And in fact, that goes back to the earliest meaning of what we call holidays. Holidays were originally, literally, holy days. And there were times, therefore, of rest and ease in which one could listen to the music of one's own soul. One might spend time in contemplation. one wasn't doing. It was space for being. And it feels really, any time that we give ourselves space for being, it's like an inner vacation. Now we use the holiday vacation is often involves a lot of doing, traveling and activities, sports and games and music, as a way to ease our minds. But I come back again to this sense of wholeness, that just allowing our experience to be in our frame of acknowledgement, as we've just been hearing, to acknowledge what it is we feel. Even when it is not that good, what we feel, there's a light, there's a wholeness that in itself is a kind of comfort, a deep comfort, because denial also takes a lot of work, actually, and creates a kind of separation that breaks a certain type of wholeness. We're pushing away, we're pushing back at some kind of truth that we're not ready to recognize just yet. In these times, the brokenness is very real. We can't go out, we can't fly around or take a train. Some of us are even hesitant to take long car trips, to go and be with our loved ones on these holy holidays and feel that kind of wholeness of family and community that means so much to us. And that is a real loss. It's a separation. And so I was reflecting on this, that there's so much in the air nowadays, and what will breach our sense of loss and separation and open to more of a sense of wholeness and completeness, even right now, right in these broken times. The reason it feels broken, ultimately, that we can't go and be with the ones we want to be with. We worry about the ones we want to be with, even if we are with them, because the times make us aware of the fragile nature of our happiness. But at the bottom of that, why are we afraid? Why are we worried? If we really look, what's very much, there's a layer of fear that might be difficult to discover, but even deeper than that, what is underneath that? Really, it's love. It's love and gratitude. It's because we hold people and community and values that may seem contested in the world. There are things that we hold very, very dear and that we're grateful for. And acknowledging that is a bit of dynamism in the soul. So I'd like to invite you to us together to create a bit of space right now, just a few minutes, to relax your soul, to just take a moment to, whatever does it for you, exhale, rest for a moment at the end of the exhale. Just let your space open. And the operative intention is let and allow, not doing anything, but allowing what comes forward. So we just empty out a bit as we settle. Surely you have been reflecting on things. Our minds are generally quite active. And right now, we can empty that process out a bit. To feel a little more space in your own mind, really in your own heart. The heart really is where we feel our emotions. And many systems of human anatomy recognize that, especially in Asia. It's a lot of feeling in the heart, and our own language does that as well. Feel here. Even we know the brain is here. The heart's an important place. It's a very tender place. And it's a place that is home to great beauty, love. So I invite you to take a moment now. Your body is really, your heart is relaxed. Something like an open flower, as we like to say, the petals just opening, ready to receive sunlight. In this case, the light of your own loving bringing to mind of someone that you love, unproblematically, not something you have to think about a lot. Just someone or something or some view of nature or some music, something that lights up your heart with love. Special person. I give you a moment to do that and to really just to feel whatever it is you feel. Anyone, anything that you love is a gift, a grace. And so perhaps just naturally something like gratitude or gentle stream of loving flow. Gratitude for this being, this beloved in your life, whoever, whatever. And as that arises for you, in your own way, in your own heart, not like might be in anyone else, just as it arises for you, appreciate it. And of course, you continue to breathe. You feel that you can breathe in the grace and blessings of that beloved. And exhale your grateful love in return. And of course, your exhalation is a gift to the world, a gift back to the beloved. I give you a minute or two to just feel whatever seems most comfortable, inspiring to you. Settle on that. You may find as you settle that you start to let go of the story, the image, the person, and focus more and more, centering more and more in simply the feeling itself, the love, the gratitude, the expanding in return through your own breathing. And as you rest with that sensibility, that dynamism, that glowing and flowing in your heart, perhaps it's natural enough that it should expand actually throughout your whole body. So every cell, your chest, your arms, your legs, your head, your crown, your fingertips, all of it becomes a kind of glowing, flowing acknowledgement, sensing, a present appreciation of this feeling in every part of you. And in lighting you up, perhaps in the mysterious ways of transmission and communication, it also begins to light up all of us in the mandala of this field together, online together. Perhaps it lights up others in your household or others dear to you, wherever they are. Space is nothing to this kind of communication. So if it pleases you to play with that, that you are lighting up many, many other beings, maybe the whole world, with the light of your heart. Mm-hmm. And take another minute, any way you'd like to take it, acknowledging, appreciating this light in your heart, knowing it's always ready to be called forth. Now that we're back in a slightly different light, perhaps, than we started, we'd like to invite you to share whatever you would like to share. Anything that you share is light to our minds. So we have this space, and we would love to hear from you. Whatever inspiration means to you, how you get it, where it's difficult to get. Whatever is in your hearts, we'd love to hear it. This is how we connect. I'm sorry you lost your teacher. That's always, even if it's been a long time, it's always a hard loss.
Lovely.
How lovely. Yeah, sparkle.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I was inspired in listening to you. It wasn't in any of my notes, but I just feel that the unsung heroines and heroes in our situation nowadays are all the frontline service providers and deliverers, whether it's the people who bring our food or people who stock the shelves in the pharmacies and the hospitals and the grocery stores, the people who work in the car repair places.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all the people who provide us service and are typically the lowest paid on the totem pole are most at risk, working very, very hard. And I just feel enormous gratitude for every person who is out of their home or in their home providing service nowadays. Just tremendous feeling of gratitude. And one of the things that I'm enormously grateful for and is a source of strength and capacity moving forward is Zoom. It has really allowed us to maintain our connection and touch with one another. I was recently talking to a dear friend who, out of choice, is a bit of a Luddite and doesn't use social media, or they do use the phone, but not Zoom. And they were talking about their felt sense of absence of connection. And of course, I think almost all of us are feeling the drawbacks of absence of physical connection and just physical presence. But Zoom arrived just in time. I mean, it's a few years old, but it's really reached its strength and its capacity just when we needed it for us to be able to maintain our community, our connection with our community. And certainly at Dawn Mountain, thanks to Claire historically and Gary historically, and now Emily, our ability to make use of Zoom as a platform for connecting as a community and providing the traditional teachings and having connection and foster transformation is just, it just is really a tremendous source of gratitude that I have. On a bit of a lighter note, we have discovered the joys of online shopping and delivery of necessity, but there have been a couple of interesting events. One was when I ordered a box of mushrooms that I thought would last for 1 or 2 weeks, one box of mushrooms, and they delivered one mushroom in a big plastic bag. And the other was kind of going the opposite direction. I ordered 2 ordinary bottles of pickles, and they delivered these 1.5 gallon industrial size pickle jars with industrial strength pickles. I think they could have been used as a kind of secret weapon. They were so sour. It did take me 6 months to work my way through the industrial sized pickle jars and the industrial strength pickles, but we finally did it. But returning to seriosity, we really, really all do need sources of connection. And I think, so much of what we have taken for granted, both in our civil society by way of civility and our social society in terms of just presencing with one another, I think really we have been blessed in the United States for sure. I mean, we haven't had a war on our continent for 150 years. So we have a kind of blessed expectation of what life should be like. And between the political fray that we're still in the thick of, and will continue, it seems, for a bit of the foreseeable future, and this medical fray, which is a bit of a war on its own. I mean, really, we are so up there in terms of the number of people who have perished in this situation. We appreciate how much connection, human connection, is important for revitalization and inspiration, and how much community. And, I was thinking, even preparing for this, that, community really for us includes in our own minds our teachers who are in China, their students, our students, our fellow students in all the communities that Adzon Rinpoche teaches and has taught. It's a very, very large body of connection and revitalization and inspiration. But we also often, pretty much in line with what Anne just did, I have a slightly different twist to a guided imagery that I'd like to offer and walk you through. So again, if you could just get comfortable. And for this, if you want, some people it might be easier if you close your eyes and just feel comfortable. Maybe take 1 or 2 or 3 relaxing breaths in a way that relaxation is meaningful for you. And you can imagine in front of you a treasure chest with pictures or video or memories. As you open that treasure chest, see if you can come up with a picture or a video or a memory of something that has been a source of inspiration and strength for you in the past. And that can be a person, it can be a relationship, it could be a coach or a teacher, could be a pet, could be a place, could be a book. Something that is a source of inspiration and strength that lets you dust yourself off and get back into the fray. And as you recall a source of inspiration, can you see what yourself in a moment with that source of inspiration? Can you recall an actual event with your source of inspiration. Can you take in the surroundings? Was there a particular light that was present, or particular visual objects that were present? Was there a particular smell? Something in the air? Or is there a particular set of sounds that was present when you were being inspired and with your source of strength? Was there something you were tasting? And what does it feel like in your body to recall a source of inspiration and strength? This source of inspiration is in the treasure chest of your mind and will be available for you moving forward into 2021. Whenever you would like to recall this person, place, or thing, this relationship with the source of inspiration and strength, and what it feels like in your body. To be inspired, to be strong, to be anchored, to be energized. Be appreciative of having this in these difficult times. It's not either or. There are difficulties, and we bring to mind this source of strength and inspiration. We allow ourselves to feel in our bodies what it's like to feel inspired and to feel strong. It may even feel surprising. What do you see when you see the relationship you have with your source of inspiration? A person or persons, a place, a pet, a thing, a scene. What do you smell? What do you hear? And when things are challenging in the coming year, you can call on this source of inspiration and strength. Into your DNA and cellular structure. Just this felt sense of confidence that they can bestow, perhaps without even words, perhaps with words. What does it feel like to have a sense of ability to be in the face of turmoil, to be able to bend and flow with the eddies and currents that swirl around us, supported by your experience of your source of inspiration and strength. What does it feel like in your body to recall this person, place, thing, pet? What are you seeing? What are you hearing? What are you thinking? What are you smelling or tasting? Just take a minute to allow that to permeate your being and feel okay with feeling inspired and strong, and that it's something you can call on in your own personal treasure chest. You can put your memory gently and lovingly back into your personal treasure chest. It is your resource. And just a little bit more being with this experience, and letting it absorb into your totality, your wholeness. So I was recently at a talk by a scholar on religion and health, Ken Pargament. And it was actually very, very worthwhile talk, and it kind of inspired me in preparing for this. And he used a phrase that I found very stimulating. The phrase was vicarious inspiration, and that is that we draw inspiration from others, and I think we also can draw inspiration from hearing one another's inspiration. One of the lovely things about being in a community with such wonderful individuals as you each are is that you all do have incredible riches that you on occasion share with one another. So I'm wondering if any of you would care to share your sources of inspiration. Yeah, safety is such a significant thing, and in a way, you don't appreciate it until you've got its absence, and then you realize, I wish I felt safe. Lovely, and thank you so much for sharing that with us. It's lovely. And isn't it, you know, all of us relate to things differently. So the idea that you're sort of witnessing the brush touching the canvas and somehow both seeing, but also kinesthetically relating to that and touching into that, it feels so lovely.
Especially. I hear it.
Yeah.
Because you had put something from you on you had painted something that he was connecting with you.
The present.
Putting his paint, you know, in conversation with your paint.
Yeah.
It's and very intimate. Yeah.
I was reminded as you told that story, and last night when we exercised, we watched TV, and they've got these pictures that flash when nothing's on the TV, but they just kind of have beautiful pictures now, and then sometimes little news things. And so there was a news item that Noguchi, who is a sculptor, one of his sculptures was going to be put, I think, on the eastern terrace of the White House. And I'm going to hold the rest of that story because Terry has her hand up. So let me. It's a delightful story.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So lovely. It's a blessing, a true blessing. And thank you for sharing that. You know, I think, you know, the teachings of dependent origination and human dependent origination and all the causes and conditions that ongoingly have supported us, do support us, will support us. It's just, it really is a cause of great joy and appreciation and gratitude for those, for everyone, really. So thank you for bringing that up. And I'm experiencing a lot of vicarious inspiration listening to it. Thank you for sharing that.
Likewise.
Wonderful.
Really wonderful. He must have really appreciated and felt gratitude for your work also to do all that.
Thank you for sharing that. So I'll finish the story about Noguchi, and then we'll have a little music, and then Ann and I will have just one sentence of conclusion each.
Unless there's one more person who comes up between now and then.
Unless there's
one or
two.
two
Person that comes up. So there is a movie called Leonie. It's a really fine movie, and it turns out it's about Noguchi's mother. And I'm not going to go into the whole story because it's a bit too complicated, but at a certain point, Leonie is an American, and in the early 1900s, she goes to Japan as a single woman. And she does, I think she gets married, and she gives birth to who's about to become Noguchi. But at a certain point, she and young Noguchi are in a house, and there are people doing some repair work, and one of the men is using a plane. He's a carpenter, and he's planing the wood, and the young Noguchi wants to learn how to do it. I may start crying just telling the story. And so he takes a hold of the plane and he starts using the plane. And of course, it's going crazy bad. I mean, it's just, kind of willfully.
He's a young kid. He doesn't have the strength. He doesn't know how to keep it on the wood.
So then in a mind-blowing moment, the master carpenter says, close your eyes. And he puts his arms around him and he just says, feel what it feels like. So he's taking him out of his head and he's taking him out of his thoughts and he's putting him into acknowledging his experience and actually sensing what it's like to plane the wood. And many of you have tried to do any kind of sculpting or pottery or even probably working with plants or building anything. You can go at it with your head, you can go at it with your thought, you can go at it with your eyes, but often these things need to be felt and sensed. And so then the little boy allows his arms to be held by his master, and he learns how to plane. And then he goes on to become an enormously successful sculptor where, again, you would have to, in doing sculpting, you have to feel what's going on with the stone. Of course, you have to think and see, but you've got to feel the chisel with the stone. And it's a very, very powerful story by way of a transmission. And what we offer one another through inspiration. And I was inspired through what I was hearing from your stories to tell that story. So we're going to have a moment of music, actually 5 moments of music or a few moments of music, and then we'll have our concluding statements.
Marilena, I don't know if you're still on. Would you like to say anything about this music? And you don't have to. Maybe you're not here anymore.
I'm here, Anne.
Would you?
What piece is it?
It's her piece.
It's your piece.
Well, Anne and me wanted to do something very special for you, but we couldn't. So we ended up with this bamboo flute music, which I did in the garden with some crickets and my cell phone. It's like it contains all what you've been talking about. It's like a condensed moment of inspiration from my heart to yours. To all of you, it's like a gratitude prayer, like especially for Anne and Harvey, for helping us discover the sunshine within us. And for all the friends in Down Mountain, and for this year, all the people that have lost their lives. That's why I'm saying it's like a condensed moment, because it contains everything. And talking about the inspiration, many people came to me, many things, but I want to say it because my parents just kept like a sunshine like that, like so much gratitude for them. And well, I just wanted to share that with you. And it's just this.
Thank you.
and some crickets that were in the garden.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you.
Gratitude.
Oh, you're so sweet.
Thank you so much, Maria Elena.
Thank you.
Of inspiration.
It was so lovely. It just lit up hearing it. So now we'll hear it together.
Okay, Emily. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So inspiring, and the whole dynamism of your description, and the garden and the crickets, and I know you had another one with birds. Next time you want to use that. It's so sweet and so inspiring, and I hope for everyone, all of you here, all of us, all of your loved ones, that whatever lights you up, your gratitude, your inspiration, your sense of connection to others, your sense of trust with another person, all of these things are so significant for our human lives. And may they light you and light all of us into our next year, 2021. May it be a good one.
So we have indeed been blessed in our hearts by our community, by our teachers, by our ongoing relationships. We are supported mutually, one another, and we have the deep, heartfelt wish and prayer that every one of us will be able to sustain inspiration and strength moving into the coming year. And thank you all for participating in this event so much. We appreciate every single one of you.